And I really want to give the stage to Shirish Tola, who is Mr. Databases in Microsoft. And
thank you.
And you take the stage.
All right. Well, I'm Shirish Tola. I run operational databases, and I'm excited to be here to be talking about the youngest workload in Fabric. Well, IEC predicts that there are going to be 1 billion apps that are going to be focused on AI for enterprises. I think the number is going to be much, much higher. Our job is to make sure you have the right operational database backing for all these applications. Your developers should be able to exploit the benefits of transactional workloads, build awesome user-defined functions, modern restless, headless APIs such as GraphQL, enjoy the frameworks and the tool systems that we already have in GitHub, VS Code, etc., etc. And you've already seen today, we've walked through many capabilities of Fabric that makes it easy for your data projects to excel with the pre-integrated SaaS environment. With databases now in public preview in Fabric, Fabric is evolving from being an analytics platform into a complete unified data platform. And that's the promise of Fabric databases here. All right, so what does Fabric databases do? It makes your applications easier to build because it has AI-enabled and auto-optimized database engines. We're starting with SQL Server, no less. It's easy to provision a SQL database, and I'm going to show you in a minute. Once you provision, it auto-manages itself. It scales based on your storage and throughput needs. It can monitor itself. It has intelligence built in. If you're aware of some of the features of SQL, things such as intelligent query processing, it knows how to index itself, and it really makes it easy for you to manage any relational application. Plus, your developers will have access to some of the coolest things such as VS Code extensions, our drivers, libraries, GitHub Copilots, and much more. One of the coolest things here, we've already seen it today, data seamlessly mirrors into OneLake once your operational workload is going. It doesn't impact your transactional workloads. The data just keeps going. Once the data is in OneLake, the magic of Fabric kicks up. Now, of course, we're just starting here with SQL. We're not going to stop here. We're, of course, going to do a lot more here. This is an evolving space, so please stay tuned. One of the coolest things, and perhaps the most gratifying thing for us, is that you've already started embracing SQL databases in Fabric. We've heard from many of you that it simplifies your decision making, enables you to build projects that were hitherto very difficult to do it, because you really need the operational aspect along with all the coolness that you have seen so far. When all these things come together, magic happens. So naturally, we're thrilled to be welcoming SQL databases into the family of Fabric. Now, SQL, as many of you know, I think a lot of you have started your data projects and data career with SQL. It works in complex environment. It kind of operates across the clouds, including Azure and any other cloud. Operates in on-premises. It even goes and works on complex environments like Windows, Linux, containers, you name it. There is a project called Arc, Azure Arc, in Azure. It simplifies ability for you to manage your estate, even if it's outside of the cloud, with all the control plane capabilities of Azure. You can bring in all the goodness of Azure services to your estate wherever it is. It could be on-premises, it could be even other clouds. And naturally, we fit in SQL Server into the Azure Arc. By doing so, we're basically letting you enjoy all of the Azure benefits. Things such as Entra, Defender, Purview, all that stuff on the data, even when it is not sitting in Azure. And whatever we're doing in the cloud, of course, applies to our on-premises estate, applies to our SQL 2025 as well. So one of the biggest announcements we made a few months ago in Ignite, at Ignite in Chicago in 2024, was the release date of SQL Server vNext. We are basically racing towards bringing SQL 2025. Naturally means that it has to happen end of the year. This is in private preview now. Thank you. Well, and the coolest thing here is that the momentum we've been seeing is breathtaking. We've already seen 2x the number of signups for the private preview, more than any other past major release for SQL. So that's really endearing to us. And we're going to work very hard to make sure that we keep our industry-leading capabilities for both security and performance. We're going to automate the credential management, reduce vulnerabilities, and make sure that you have the best TPC workload performances. And of course, SQL 2025 is going to be first-class integrated into Fabric because mirroring is built into SQL 2025. With that, the data that lands in SQL 2025, of course, will light up and will enable you to go do awesome trans-analytical applications in Fabric. Thank you. Now, allow me to run a small demo that shows the power of this awesome SQL database engine in conjunction with the rest of Fabric. Now, before I do that, though, I want to start you by showing how easy it is to create and manage SQL database in Fabric. Let's drill. All right, so here we have Fabric. I'm just going to give a name of the database, and that's it. You are a full relational database. We have a Copilot, a familiar one that you already know, in the context of the database. Type something, it basically converts it into T-SQL, the natural language to T-SQL. You can copy paste into the query editor and execute. That's easy. Now, if you're a professional developer, you want to basically have the modern GraphQL API that's inbuilt in the context of the database. That's possible. You have state-of-the-art source control plugged in inside the database as well. And if you are a traditional database administrator of SQL, you got the roles. Performance summary is built in. You could drill into any of the queries, understand how the queries are doing. It knows how your resources are being exploited, etc. right there. And here's the cool thing. Sometimes you may have to do disaster recovery. Restore is built in. You could get access to all the built-in copies of point-in-time restore. You could go ahead and build it really easily. This is what we mean by a SaaS experience. And of course, I haven't shown quite a lot about SQL. I didn't have to because we're not necessarily building a new engine here. It carries the full power of SQL engine that you are familiar with into Fabric. That we're not cutting down on any of the surface area. We're basically SaaSifying it and deeply integrating into Fabric so you can envision the entirety of the application. I'm going to show you one example that basically does exactly that. This is an architecture of an insurance company where the claims officer is trying to improve the customer satisfaction. You can imagine a customer basically interacting with the vector application, vector search application. They want to search for their claims and then ask for a review. That review request basically gets picked up by the rest of Fabric. Streaming here, even streams here that gets picked up, conjunction with the data that's mirrored from the operational data in OneLake, using AI functions, calls into an AI agent, gets your recommendation into your Power BI dashboard, and that basically helps the claims officer to improve the customer satisfaction. Let's see this quickly in action. Well, here you see that the customer is playing with the chat playground. They're basically searching for their claims. They can use a free-flowing search. They got the claim that they're looking for. Now that they can submit for a review of that claim. In the background, though, this is basically being built inside a SQL database. Here we're showing SSNS. By the way, this is a new version. It works seamlessly with the Fabric database. SSNS, new version. I'm basically pointing out a model. I'm getting embeddings. Embeddings, as most of you know, is a mathematical representation to make it easy for you to build a free-flowing search, building vector indexing with our state-of-the-art disk-KNN. All that is done. Now you can tie it up into a store procedure, enabling the customers to basically do a very easy semantic search. As you can see here, the customer is asking for showing claims where an accident occurred. This is not the exact phrase. This is not a like clause, or this is not an equal predicate clause. It's just basically making a semantic search. But you get the right results here. And that's how the customer basically goes and finds the claims that they're looking for, now that they can ask for a review. All right, okay. What happens once that request lands in the claims request table? It gets picked up by my event stream, and it's basically passed to a custom endpoint for further processing. We're going to look at how to process it with a Spark notebook. Let's first import the AI functions to talk to Azure OpenAI, get the right data frame for reading the stream. Once you have the right data frame, you can basically materialize it and gather the information, query the lakehouse to get the additional information about the customers and their claims. Once you have all that data, you can build an amazing prompt. This prompt basically gets the recommendation from the agent that I've been talking about. Once you have the request, you basically can write it back to the lakehouse. Well, let's see what happens once the agent recommendation is written into the lakehouse. I got the request here. It is written into the lakehouse table. You can imagine now building a Power BI report that basically has an amazing executive summary, and then the claims officer can go on to do a lot more things here in terms of drilling, getting the recommendation, finding the auxiliary information about the customer claims, and so on and so forth. You can imagine how easy it is for the claims officer now to basically serve the needs of the customer. Well, so I would ask you to basically take a pause here and reflect on the complexity of doing such an end-to-end service outside of Fabric, without Fabric. That is really the whole beauty of integration and satisfying all these pieces. Now with databases coming into Fabric, this whole vision of trans-analytical applications is real. You basically can go and gather insights of the data that is just born in operational data in near real time. You can connect all these pieces and make it easy. So the potential of basically gathering so much of information on your operational data is real. You can do that in a governed, secure fashion, most importantly with AI-enabled aspects. So that's how I wrap it. And to talk further about the AI-enabled features and much more, I'm going to pass it back to my dear friend Amir.